When people say, oh, but you're Māori, don't you get racism? I'm like, no, I choose not to take it because you know what? I know what's behind me. Yeah. I get to walk into my urupa and I see my ancestors. They're alive. I may have never met them, but they're alive when I walk in there because I know who they are. Wow. And that's when I learned who I really was.
Born in Pukepoto, that's right, Pukepoto, between Kaitaia and Ahipara, Mea Motu is a world champion boxer with an impressive 20-0 record, New Zealand's most successful boxer in history. But Mea Motu is also a fighter, a survivor of abuse in a relationship. Living away from home, isolated and marginalised from her culture, she has now become a champion of Te Ao Māori, an inspiration for tamariki across Aotearoa. Due to fight the world champion and now ranked number 2 super bantamweight fighter in the world, Mea Motu is fighting for all of us. Here she is on Indigenous 100. It's Mea Motu. Mea Motu, kia ora. Welcome to Indigenous 100. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the kōrero. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time, because you're busy, eh?
Yes.
What are you doing at the moment, right now? You're training, yeah?
I'm training I've got to stay active because I'm fighting for the world titles. Just waiting on to hear from Eddie Hearn.
We'll talk about Eddie Hearn soon because he fascinates me. But when you say stay active, so for most of us that means going for a walk, getting our 10,000 steps a day.
No, mine is active, staying active in training, keeping fit and conditioned and ready to fight because I could get a call tomorrow and say, you're fighting next week.
So what does an average training day consist of? Not even in camp, just an average training day for you.
It's normally morning and afternoon and sometimes midday, and it's a bit of a mixture of everything. It depends on how my body is coping each day, yeah. And so we just base it on how my energy levels are.
So what is the first training session in the morning, what does that consist of?
The first training session consists of technique, skills, working with my coach one-on-one time and just breaking down the 1%ers, making sure we're perfecting everything.
Okay. Treat me as someone who doesn't know anything about training.
Oh, that's hard.
What does 1%ers mean?
1%ers just means like my mistakes or my things that I'm not quite 100% on, like a basic throwing a right hand correctly and making sure that I'm drawing that power, my whole body weight into that punch.
And how do you train for that? Like, what do you do to get that right?
Just constant repetition with one-on-one with my coach, where it's pads or it could be sitting in front of him and he'll just break it down and sometimes I have to throw the punch 100 times to get it right.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And so you do that, right? And then what do you do?
Then I'll go home, have a rest, or I don't even rest. I've got kids.
How many kids you got again?
5 children. Yep.
How old's the eldest child?
My oldest is 17 and my youngest is 4.
This is the one who plays bowls, right?
Yes.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Okay. So you got 5 kids. Wow.
5 children.
So are you training and then getting home in time for them to get to kura?
Sometimes. Not really. I feel really bad because I'm always making them late and I'm always constantly have to tell the kayakors and that sorry they're late because of me, and they look at me like, really? They think it's the kids, but it's not, it's me.
Because they're going, no, she's a boxer, she has to be organised.
Yes, I know, that's what everyone says. But I'm literally like running around like a headless chicken.
And then, so once the kids go to school, you finish your morning training session, and I'm just trying to get an idea of the day, because, uninitiated, I don't know what goes on.
Yeah.
What happens then between then and midday if you've got, say, a session at midday, what are you doing then?
So sometimes I have work majority of the time, so I've also got to manage my work as well. And then I have training at midday, and it could be strength, which is just making all my little muscles, because I have a lot of injuries. We've got to make sure we've got to keep those strong, working on the little muscles and making sure we're activating them.
Okay.
So it could be like a bit of weights, but it's not so much weight. It's light weights, but still keeping.
Lots of reps.
Yeah, lots of reps.
See, I do know.
Yeah, see, you do know.
But hang on, you said you work.
Yes.
I thought you were a professional boxer.
I am a professional boxer, but I still got to work too.
Why is that? How can that be? You're a professional boxer. Are you? Because the misconception we have is you're getting paid to fight.
No, we do get paid, but it depends on the fight, and it depends on the promoter.
Yeah.
And then also we have constant negotiations. So we do get paid, but it's just a one payment. It's not it's just one, like they'll just pay you like, okay, for this fight you're getting paid $500. So it's kind of like that.
Hang on, you're a world champion.
Yeah.
And you're getting paid $500 a fight.
No, that's what it's like.
That's what it's like. Yeah. No. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So hang on. I'll get to the professional boxing bit. What do you do for a job? What are you working in?
I work multiple jobs. So I'm a cleaner. I clean homes, and also I work at the gym, and I also speak, and I also volunteer and help with I Am Hope, as I'm an ambassador for I Am Hope, and I fight for our children, our tamariki.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about the cleaning job. Why is a world champion boxer cleaning houses?
Because I love it.
Really?
I actually like it. I really enjoy it. That's where I started learning. My first job was cleaning. And so it's just, I'm really good at it, and I know, and I really like and enjoy it. It's kind of like peace to my mind, and it keeps me organised, to be honest. But it's an income, and still got to put a food on the plate and have a roof over my head to support my children.
Do the people, the houses you clean, the people who own those houses, do they know who you are?
Yes, they know who I am.
Because it's not every day someone can go, oh yeah, the world champion boxer's coming to clean my house. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
It's really... But although, in saying that, I think it was Olivia Colman, the actress, who said that she used to be a cleaner, and she loved that job too.
Yeah,
Just, as you say, giving order to the mind.
it does, yes.
Doing something. Wow. And then you also work at the gym.
Yep.
What do you do at the gym?
I take classes and I train people. So I work at Peach Boxing, and we have some fighters and like corporate fighters, and we train them as well, and I corner them in the ring, which also gives me a different outlet to vision my boxing, because I see I
How
work
can
with
that
some of
possibly
the
help
fighters.
your boxing? I mean, these are different people, right?
Yeah.
Not professional athletes like you are. You're training someone else. How does that help you fighting?
I see all their mistakes and what I need to work on, and also I understand their emotions and their feelings of what, the challenges they have to go through. It gives me an understanding of how I need to carry myself. So I start respecting, and because everyone's different, and even for me it's different, but I get so passionate that I become more passionate for myself as well. And I learned that all from training other people.
Could you train anyone?
Yes.
Even
100%.
me? Even me?
Of course. Of course. I can train anyone.
Really?
Yes.
But, what I get from you is that you exude a passion, right, when you talk about it. Even when you talk about the cleaning job, you're quite ingratiating, you've got a lot of vitality.
Yes.
Where does that come from?
Definitely would have to be from the way I was brought up, but also my journey in life.
Okay, so let's talk about being brought up first. So you were born in a place called Pukepoto.
Yes.
Where's Pukepoto?
Pukepoto is in the far, far north of New Zealand. It's in Kaitaia,
Just out of Kaitaia, right?
just outside of Kaitaia.
For those who are the older audience, they may know a guy called Pat Walsh, He was
Yes.
born in Pukepoto. Not far, on the way to Ahipara, yeah?
Yeah. So it's in the middle of Kaitaia and Ahipara. Yeah.
Beautiful place.
I always say Pukepoto is the centre of the universe. My uncle told me that.
Where's the family from Pukepoto?
Yes, my dad's side of the family.
So are you Te Rarawa or Te Apuri or Ngāti Kau or Ngāpuhi?
Te Rarawa.
Are you? Oh, I thought you were Ngāpuhi here.
No, definitely Te Rarawa. Loud and proud.
Is that where the Motu family are from?
Yes.
Ah, okay. From Pukepoto. What was it like growing up in Pukepoto?
Beautiful.
Yeah?
It's definitely the best place in the world for me. My childhood memory is love and really knowing who I am. When I left Pukepoto, I lost who I was because my parents took me out of there, but being brought up there as a kid, I got to live off the land, embrace, have my feet grounded to the grass, and really, I didn't like wearing shoes. The way I kept my feet warm was jumping in kaupu, which was normal for me because that's how I was brought up as a kid.
Yeah.
So I really was brought up by a loving family, and the way to our hearts was feeding us. So we were always fed really well, and we always went pig hunting and went to go catch our own kai. Now these days, everyone wants to go to McDonald's. When I was a kid, it was running to the beach and getting our own kai moana.
Yep.
That was a McDonald's for me.
Yeah, like getting tours or
Yes, puppies,
toilet and pippies if you can get them on 90 miles.
Kinners, you name it. It was right at our feet.
Did they still have those massive ice creams at the Ahipara Dairy in those days?
Yes, they did.
They still got them now.
Those
You pay
are-
like $2 and you get these huge
Big,
scoops.
massive, yes. And we used to think we were so rich then.
So how many in your whānau?
So I have 3 siblings,
Yep.
so there's 4 in total. But I come from a very big family, and all my cousins, there's like too many. I can't keep count, I lose track. But I literally thought they were all my siblings. That's how close we were. You know, we went to school together, we did everything together, we were inseparable, and that's what I loved. And it was still like that till this day. Still really close, really tight. And I'm blessed that I was brought up by such a beautiful family. And my nan was like the queen and my papa was like the king for us, you know, really looked after us.
Who was your nan?
My nan was Sally Roberts. And then my papa was Alfred Motu, who I just loved and adored. My nan was like, I've never met a cook better than her. Everyone says, oh, they're better. I'm like, no, you'll never beat my nan. She always cooked for marae. So every time...
Wait, which marae?
Te Rarawa.
Te Rarawa.
Yeah. Yeah. She always cooked. Like you walk into her home and there would just be a big, massive kai.
Like boil-ups and stuff like that?
Everything, you name it.
Boil-ups with flat dough boys.
No, she made rewana bread.
Oh,
Best rewana bread ever. I've never met anyone that can make it as good as my nan.
You should make a takako.
Oh, she did, but
Okay.
I was more of a rewana bread.
Okay.
My coach calls me the bread roll.
Why did your family leave Pukepoto?
My mum and dad left because my dad had better opportunities down in Auckland, so that's why we left. But I didn't quite understand back then. I was very hurt and upset, taken out of something that I loved, and it was my comfort zone, and I knew who I was there, and as soon as I was ripped away, it hurt my heart.
How old were you?
I was about 11 when we left.
It's a pretty formative age, eh?
Yeah,
Because you're the eldest, right?
I'm the oldest.
So your younger brothers and sisters probably...
They were only like babies. Yeah. So it was a big change and a big shift. Growing up surrounded by family and then going to a big city, and you're just seeing buildings, massive buildings, bridges, and you're like, I'm used to paddocks. I'm used to the sea. I'm used to like one house and then the next paddock. You know, it was quite very I saw a lot of animals, grass and everything. And then coming to Auckland, I felt like I was drowning, felt suffocated. And I just lost who I was.
Massive adjustment, eh?
Yeah.
What was the impact of that? Yeah.
Made me a very angry kid. I became very angry and aggressive, and I struggled to talk to my parents. I silenced myself because I wasn't happy. And my parents never explained why we left, and I didn't understand. So I was so angry that they just ripped me away, and I couldn't handle it.
Did they know?
No, they didn't know.
Because you were silencing yourself, they didn't know
Well,
how
'cause
much
I-
of an impact it was having on
Yeah,
you.
because I said to my mum, why did we leave? And she was like, because there's opportunities down here. But I didn't understand what opportunities she meant. So I just struggled. And I took all my anger and aggression at school.
Must have been tough, eh?
It was tough. It was hard because I went from a school that was like only 50 kids to a big, massive school that was like over 1,000 kids. I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know how to manage it. And then also going from uniform and have to wear shoes was like, whoa, this is uncomfortable. I don't know what to do. And the only way I knew to get attention was being aggressive. Never aggressive to anyone else. I was aggressive to like the walls, the chairs. I'd pull tantrums because I just wanted attention. I was fighting for that attention, but I didn't know how to express it.
When did the boxing become a thing?
Would have been when I was 12, and then I just turned 13. That's when my mum put me in boxing because I became more and more aggressive. And I was really good at soccer, so I needed to pick up my fitness as well. And so my mum put me in boxing because she wanted me to manage my anger, because she just was like, where's this brat coming from?
See, that's an interesting decision, eh? Because lots of people, you would think, when they see one of their tamariki who is lashing out a bit, they try and steer them in the opposite course,
Yes.
rather than going into something like boxing.
Yeah.
Do you reckon she kind of knew there was something there? Was there something in your whakapapa or something that has a bit of that DNA in it that lends itself to... Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah?
So my mum's cousin, Shane Chopper Chapman, was a kickboxer.
Yes.
And so my mum was like, you want to do kickboxing? I was like, no. And she was like, well, we'll give boxing a go. And I was like, no, I don't want to give it a go.
Wait, is your mum a Chapman?
No, her first cousin is. So my nan, which is my mum's mum, and Shane's mum are sisters.
Ah.
Yeah.
But he's Mangamuka Chapman, eh? He's one of those Chapmans. isn't
Yeah, so different fathers, but
Oh, wow.
same, mums.
Wow.
They're Watanis.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Oh, wow. So you reckon she might have had an idea about this, going, there
Yeah.
might be something here.
Yeah, and because I got bullied too, but I would just shrug it off and be like, oh, it's nothing. But my mum knew there was something wrong with me. Mm-hmm. She knew that I needed an outlet and a safe place to do it instead of lashing it out at home and stuff and in front of people. She put me in boxing.
You were being bullied at school.
Yes.
Do you remember who the people were?
No, very vivid. I think I just blocked that out. I think I was more angry just with life as a kid because I just hated that school. I really hated school. I loved school back home because that was normal to me. And then also I went from being in a Māori world, coming into an English world. It was confusing and I had to learn English really quick. And so I got so captivated in the English world because back home, it was something very loud and proud to speak reo Māori. But in Auckland, it was like back then, it was like, you're not allowed to speak it. Like, it's embarrassing. And I was that's where the confusion, I lost. And so I listened to that society back then. And so I was like, oh, okay. Māoris, like I was always, oh, you Māoris, you're just going to end up like every other Māori. And so I carried that, and it did hurt as a kid, hearing that, and hearing it from adults and hearing it from kids. And so I was ashamed and embarrassed to speak my reo, and then I lost it. You know, it was taken away from me.
How old are you now?
I'm 34 years old.
4 years old, wow. And your eldest child is
17.
young mum.
Yes, young mum.
Wow,
Very young.
wow. What was it like? I mean, what did your mum and dad say?
Back then, my mum, I didn't know I was pregnant because I was still getting my regular periods, and I was still training, and I was still fighting back then. So I didn't know I was pregnant, and I found out I was pregnant at 20 weeks.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that was a big shock. And my dad and mum had split even before I had that, before I had my son. So it was a big change, big shift. I was trying to grow up really fast because I didn't like my environment I was in. I struggled. My mum went through a real hard time, and her way of coping with the breakup from my dad, she went to church, and we lost our ways, and we had to, it was like overnight. We literally went from being this awesome kid to the next night, it's like, we got church, we got to pray, we got to constantly pray every 3 hours, Bible studies. The world is the devil, and we're the angels. So everyone outside of our house was the devil, and TV was taken away from us, and even to listening to music, it was a sin. So I had to learn that all overnight, and it was a big shift.
Another big shift. Yeah.
Another big shift, and
it would be hard, right, for solo mum and 4 kids and
yes,
and all that kind of thing, and then becoming a solo nanny.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely, because we grew up in faith, and she was very strong. As soon as we found out I was pregnant, she was like, "We're not getting rid of this baby. It's a sin. The devil will come and get you." And so I literally believed it, and I was always taught to respect and honour my parents. So I just listened, and I had to get married quick too, because it was part of our faith.
What was the faith?
Christians.
Yeah.
But it was just, that was how mum was, and I felt like it was like, I saw Christians and I had family that were Christian, but they were even stronger. And I felt like we were in a cult. That's how I felt. But my mum couldn't see it that way. I knew she was trying to deal with her pain because she had been with my dad most of her life. And to have the love of her life be ripped away, that was her new way of coping, was going into faith. And so she went deeper and deeper. And we struggled because I had to learn really quick about faith. I knew about it, but we had to read the Bible from the start to the finish.
Wow.
Every day.
I'm just trying to think, there probably aren't too many 17-year-old mums get married 17, 18?
17.
And have boxing as an outlet.
Yeah.
And Christian.
Yes.
And use boxing as an outlet. Were you training all the way through that time? Was that your outlet?
Yes, that was my outlet. And I found my partner in boxing because she literally ripped all my trophies away, threw them out of the bin, because we weren't allowed to idolise anything. And so that was like, whoa, okay, so you're ripping my achievements away. And so I wanted to really grow up really fast because I was like, how can I escape this? Because I'm stuck in this. That's how I felt. And so I found my partner, and I just quickly wanted to fall in love. Mm. And I just wanted to quickly grow up and be an adult and escape from this world that I thought that we were living was evil, that I was stuck in.
Were you a different kind of boxer at that stage?
Yes.
Simply because your life was different, right?
Yes. So I was definitely a different fighter. Back then, I was a punch and run away. And that basically explains my life, because that's how I lived my life, running.
Wow. Punch and run away.
Yeah, that's the fighter I was back then as an amateur fighter.
Is that why you ended up going to Australia? That kind of runaway scenario?
Yes. I was living my life on a run. But Not when I was 17.
No.
It wasn't until I had my second
Yeah,
child.
yeah.
That's when all the trauma and everything came. It was definitely a challenge.
Because what you end up doing is, and I understand it, right? You know,
Yeah.
you say you're growing up fast and getting out of what seems like a cult in
Yes.
a Christian family, but you also end up going away from family support, right?
Yes.
And then you become isolated
Yeah.
in a completely different country. I know it's Australia, not far away, but you become isolated, and that makes it potentially tougher.
It does. But I thought I was making it better. Because I was only seeing my vision and what was making, as long as I felt like I was getting away, that I felt safe. But I was actually digging my own hole even worse. But I couldn't see it then because I just had so much going on, and my main focus was just, let's just try to grow up. How do I live? I didn't even know how to live because I wasn't taught it. I learned everything from my partner at the time.
Tough place to be in, eh, Mel?
Very tough. It was tormenting. You know, from ever since I had my second child, that's when, like, you know, the hurt, the pain, the beatings, and I thought that was okay. And I couldn't understand why I would stay silent. I was like, why am I so ashamed? Why am I scared to even tell someone?
Yeah, you've mentioned silence twice, and I've only just met you. I mean, I've watched you, of course.
Yeah.
But I've only just met you. But you don't strike me as a silent person.
Oh,
Do you know
yes.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So you've obviously gone through a lot and come to a realisation about who you are.
Yes.
And what you are. But that, for someone to live a life like that isn't their way, if you know what I mean. That's
Yeah.
not what they're like.
No.
I mean, I keep using the word tough, but man, it must have been a real struggle for you.
It was mentally struggling, and also it was painful because I lost who I was, and it started when I was young. You know, I was silenced young, so it became a normal behaviour. And so because I was silenced young, it kept consistent. So the easy way for my parents to just stop dealing with my pain, they were just like, go to your room. Instead of actually talking to me, they never talked to me. So I never knew how to express. I didn't learn about coping mechanisms. You know, I had no understanding. I just had to learn that all out and figure it out myself. I didn't have any guidance. The only guidance I had was how to love. That's all I was taught. And so I didn't know how to manage my anger. I didn't know how to manage my emotions. And I was always silenced in my room. So I was always shut down. So if someone hurt me, I'd shut down and I'd stay closed. And that's what my ex-husband used to do to me. He used to hurt me, and so I'll just shut down in silence and go back to my own coping mechanisms the way that I knew. And that was the behaviour I learned, was just staying silent and quiet and stay in the shell.
Were you still boxing all the way through this?
I was very in and out, very in and out. And I did tell people, but they would call me an idiot. And so to be titled an idiot, that was very embarrassing.
Why were they calling you an idiot?
Because I chose to stay in it. But I didn't know how to get out. Because I would ask, well, show me how to get out. Like, what do I do? But all they did was suppress my emotions and made me feel belittled. So the only person that actually made me feel good, but also hurt me, was my ex-husband at the same time. So I was seeking for that male love attention because my dad walked out on us. And so he gave me the love, but he also gave me the pain. And I just wanted someone to love me because I never had it. My mum, she was so caught up from her heart being broken, but she didn't understand that us as kids are suffering. Where's our love? Where's our attention? She neglected that. And I had to try grow up and protect my siblings from that, and it was very hard. So it was very painful. And
then going into a situation where you have to protect yourself,
Yes.
and then your tamariki.
yes. So it was a war, definitely a war.
How do you break out of that? How did you get out of it? I didn't know how to get out of it, to be honest.
I tried to find ways. I lived my life running. I tried to escape from him. I tried to go to the justice system, but they failed me. Because he always won that battle because he knew the system in and out. So I had to keep trying to fight and try run, but at the same time I was still living in that shame and embarrassment because it brings me back to when my reo was taken away from me. And I lived in that shame. And so I carried that. And so I was too ashamed to even speak about the struggle and pain that I was going through. And so I had to try find ways of how do I get out? And it took me years. I tried so many times. And my number one fight where I almost gave up. I literally almost gave up, but it was my daughter. My daughter who saved me. Her strength and courage to save her mother because her father tried to stab me and destroy me, but she jumped. And she's only about 7 or 8 years old. She jumped in front of that knife and tried to risk her own life for me. And I thought, wow, she's only a kid. Why has she got so much courage and strength? And I felt like a coward because my daughter was making a stand for me. She was fighting for me to keep me alive for her siblings. And I was like, why can't I do that? I should be protecting her. And that was the shift. When my daughter fought for me, I knew this is wrong. I have to grow up. I've got to make a stand. And I stopped living in his fear. And I built the courage. I lost so many times, but I never stopped. And once he got arrested and he got locked up, it never stopped. He still carried on tormenting me. And I was still living in fear and pain. But I built courage, and that was the strength. I carried that. My daughter was my hope. She really saved me.
And then after that, you came home. You came back to Aotearoa, yeah?
Yeah, I came home.
When did you start picking up, seriously, boxing again?
I picked up boxing probably about 4 years ago.
See, this is amazing, eh?
Yeah.
How did that happen? Why did it happen?
So I just had my baby, my youngest child.
Yeah.
She's 4 now, and she would have been about 6 months. And I was in a really depressed spot at that time. I had lost who I was, and I had split from my partner that I had my baby with because I was still struggling with trauma, and I was putting him through trauma as well because of what I've been through. So we parted ways and we became friends and co-parent, but I was still in a dark place and I just lacked confidence and I wanted to feel good about myself.
And they say physical exertion, picking up sport, doing waka, whatever it is a good way of, if you have depression, it's one of the really good things that helps.
It is. And so I put it on Facebook and I was like, does anyone want to do training? And my coach my coach now, at that time he messaged me, come down to the gym, you egg, you're only down the road. And I was like, oh, should I go?
Come down to the gym, you egg.
Yeah. And I was kind of like, should I go or should I not? But then something just called me and I was like, I'm going to go. Yeah. And I walked into his gym and he was like, you want to be the next world champion? And I was like, no, I'm not. This is a joke. Yeah, really? He really said that.
Why did he say that?
Because he's seen me train. We used to train together in the amateurs. Yeah. And he always said there was something special about me. And I was like, you say that about everyone. And he was like, no, you'll be my next world champion. And I didn't believe him at the time. Yeah. And I never wanted to believe him because I was like, I'm not doing this sport, no way. I ran away from boxing. I hate it. But he found a way for me to love it again.
How do you do that?
He kept pushing me to train. Yeah. And I kept showing up because I love training. Yeah. That's one thing. I love training because it was a great outlet. It made me feel confident and safe. But he started slowly breaking down my barriers and finding out, wait, what really happened to you? Because I disappeared. Yeah. But I slowly started trusting him because he started showing me that it's okay, Mia, I'm here, we've got your back. Him and his wife.
So he's more than a coach.
Oh, he's more than a coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's my best friend. He's like a father I never had.
Yeah.
You know, he's got my back, and his wife was like the mother that I was missing and fighting for. You know, they're not my blood family, but they feel like they are my blood family because they literally had my back, and I didn't know.
See, the training thing I get, you know, and when I asked you naively whether you could train me or not, and you were very gracious and you said you could. I don't believe you, but anyway. But the thing is that there's that old saying, I think it's Tyson says, you know, everyone's a world champion until they get smacked in the face or something, right?
Yes.
So I know you said you like training, but there's training and then there's boxing.
Yeah.
Do you love boxing?
I do love boxing. I really do. You know, people always think boxing is but it's an aggressive sport. Why would you love being punched in the head? It's not even about being punched in the head. I learn something new about myself every time I fight.
Okay.
The challenge, and I learn about life when I hop in that ring.
See, people. I've heard people say this all the time. You learn about yourself and it's a challenge. It still feels to me like you're going to get punched in the head. So explain that for me. When you say that, what do you mean? What do you actually mean?
So I learned when I fight in the ring, each time I fought, I've learned something different about myself that I didn't know I could do.
Give me an example.
So the first thing I learned was how to control my anger. Boxing taught me that in the ring, because if you're angry in that ring, you're going to get found. So you can't let your emotions get to you. So you've got to be composed. You've got to be calm.
Do you have to be toe?
Yeah,
Really?
You have to be toe. If you're not, you'll get found. And you'll literally become, I learned that you become, when you're angry, you're tense, you're tight, you're locked. But when you're calm and relaxed, you're dangerous, you're aggressive, your power's way more stronger.
Wow.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, it sounds really counterintuitive, eh?
Yeah, and like each time I fought, and then I've learnt more about who I am, and also being proud of who I am, finding my identity, and just really embracing my full self.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't realize I was actually killing my own self. I was holding my actual potential because I was living in that shame of embarrassment, still being ashamed of being abused, being Māori, not speaking my language, you know, losing all that stuff. And I lived and hid it, and I kept that in secret, not realizing that I was killing my inner being inside me, and I couldn't be my full potential self, and I was holding my own growth. So I was stopping myself from growing to be even better. And then once I started realizing and finding all those stuff that I learnt more, and I started became even more better, stronger, but I started seeing things so much better.
Wow.
And I started appreciating what I've got. I'm so blessed. Like, I literally, when people try to attack me, I'm real calm about it, and boxing's taught me that. So, you know, what I learned in boxing, when people criticize me, I'm like, that's a you problem, not a me.
That's true.
And it's the same because I went to Dubai and we had to deal with race, you know, and, you know, because me being Māori, they didn't like the fact that I had a group that did haka and stuff. And so I was like, everyone was like, did you feel hurt and upset? I said, no, because that's their problem. They live in the unknown. They're uneducated. They don't know my culture. They have no understanding. And they're like, but that's racism. I'm like, that's racism for them, but not for me. I choose not to take it on because I know who I am. I know what I got. I got everything. And I literally feel, this is what boxing's really taught me, is that I truly believe we have the best culture in the world. We are the most blessed culture in the world because we stay strong in who we are. We fight for our land. We fight. We don't allow money to buy us. Some do, but majority, we've always allowed us to fight for our land, which is way more precious than fighting for money. And my ancestors taught me to fight for our land, be strong in who we are. And I've only learnt that all in boxing. And like when people say, oh, but you're Māori, don't you get racism? I'm like, no, I choose not to take it because you know what? I know what's behind me.
Yeah.
I get to walk into my urupa and I see my ancestors. They're alive. I may have never met them, but they're alive when I walk in there because I know who they are.
Wow.
And that's when I learnt who I really were. I knew who I was, and I should be loud and proud. Even though I've lost my language, but I know who I am, and no one can take that from me.
No way. Yeah.
And that's what my son and my daughter, they speak their language, they know their culture, and they used to be ashamed of speaking when they were young, but now they're proud because I've put that to them and I've told them, you be proud of who you are.
It's incredibly powerful. Eh?
It is.
Are you a different person? And everyone says this, and I don't know how true it is that when they step in the ring, they become something different. Is that true?
Some people, that's why I say boxing's an illusion. Because what you see and what you think I'm doing is not actually what I'm doing.
Okay,
makes sense.
explain that.
You know? So it's like a lot of people think, like even now, they've seen me fight and they just think, man, you're just so angry and aggressive, you're in there to hurt and kill them. And I'm like, no, I'm actually enjoying myself. I'm actually in a really good place when I walk into that ring. I always, if you watch, before I even fight, I always smile.
Yeah, that's true.
And I always say, good luck, all the best, let's fight. Because we're in there to fight and we're in there to play the game. And I literally play the sport and do what I love, but I still treat them as human beings.
Yeah. That's see the issue there for some people, right? Is that that's not what boxing is. You know, boxing's all about talking up a fight and putting on the charade and making the other person your complete enemy, and trashing them, and I don't know. Maybe that's a social media phenomenon thing, right? But the fight game is, well, for to use the word, I mean, people talk about Eddie Hearn, and I know we're going to talk about him soon. Yeah. But you know, it's all a farce. It's all a charade. It's all built up to be this thing, and then when you get in the ring, you know, it changes, and people dodge punches and all this kind of stuff. And what I see of you is, you're right. When you come in, you're smiling. But it seems there's a moment where a switch flicks. That's what it looks like to us.
Yes.
But that doesn't happen for you. Is that what you're saying?
No, it doesn't happen for me. So like everyone is different, but for me, I literally truly believe the why I don't flick, and why, because I know how good I am. I know this for me is something I enjoy. It's my safe place to me. People are like, how is that your safe place? But it is, because I'm very calm, I'm very relaxed, and I know what I've got to do. And I don't let anger and aggression get the better of me, because I know I walk into that ring very strong, and I'm not worried about the result. I just worry about what I'm doing. I don't worry about my opponent. I'm focused on as long as I'm executing everything that I trained myself. You know, I worked really hard for 8 weeks, and I want to make sure that I execute everything that I did in 8 weeks. It's not even about winning that title. It's just me winning myself.
Yeah.
I'm not chasing.
So it doesn't matter who's in front of you, right?
It doesn't matter who's in front of me.
Hey, you just said something really interesting. You said, I know I'm good.
Yes.
When did you first know you were good?
Ooh, it definitely would have been when I had my first fight.
This is coming, you mean your first fight back after training with your current coach in the last 4 years?
Yes.
The first one.
When I
Talk
first...
to me about it. What happened? How did you, was it at the end when the fight was over, or when did it come to you that you were going, oh yeah?
So it was my first fight that I ever had as a professional, my pro debut. And I walked in the ring. I had the first punch get hit to me. And I thought, is that all she's got? And I thought, wow, I think I'm definitely born for this. And then by the end of the fight, I was like, I'm really good. You know, I was like, oh my gosh, I can be something really good here. And so that's when I first realized I'm actually good at this sport because I never thought I was good. And I was like, I am a puncher. Oh, wow. And I knew straight away, I was like, there's more to me. There's more to me, definitely. And each fight I've had, I've just gotten better and better.
Yeah, that must be incredibly powerful just to know in
Yes.
your own head, you know, because, you know, some of us aren't good at anything. So have never had the sensation.
No.
But do you know what I mean? Like, it must just be when you get in there and go, yeah, I got this. The endless kind of possibility is something that must be overwhelming. Like, you know, just knowing
Yes.
would be amazing. It'd be an amazing feeling to have.
It is an amazing feeling. But do you know, for me, I realised, because I always thought, and I've only just learnt this after my world title, when I first got my first world title, I used to always think that, no, yes, I've won. You know, that's the greatest feeling. No, it's not.
What's the greatest feeling then?
Boxing for me was really the vehicle. The greatest feeling was changing a kid's life. That was the greatest feeling. And really knowing our actual true greatness. I used to think we needed a title or a trophy to say we're great. But the greatness was staring right in front of me. I wouldn't have that world title if I didn't show up to training every day. Showing up was the greatness. That's what I learned. That's the true greatness. We think we needed a trophy or a title to say that we're great, but no. Me showing up to training, the showing up, that was the greatness. And it made me realise and identify where my children's greatness was. Because I always thought grades was the most important thing. Like, you've got to get your grades up, you're falling behind. And I learned, my children showed up to school every day.
And like school?
And they like school. They love kura.
Yeah, wow.
But they showed up every day on time, and they were there every day. And that was the greatness, because what I learned, that was their true greatness, because they're already prepping themselves for work industry. They're learning time management. I didn't actually see what true greatness was for my kids, because I used to think it was academic. It wasn't. It was more than academic. It was them showing up, because that's the start. Without the start, you can't complete that grade. And we neglect that. And that's what stops our children from learning and growing. That's what I learned. Because my son, my middle child, he struggled to learn. And I always made him feel a little belittled until I started recognizing and telling him, son, the main thing is you keep going to school. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. I don't care about the grade. I'm so proud of you showing up. And he was in the lowest maths group and everything. This year, after 2 years of hard work, my son's in the highest class.
Yeah. It's amazing what happens when you shift the dynamic a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And have a real true understanding where our kids, where their mind is, really not where we want them to be, actually look at where they want to be and guide them and nurture them. I started learning, giving them the coping mechanisms, the tools, was way more important than actually giving them the academic.
You see, I think I get it now, because I always thought the idea in boxing or in any sport was to be a world champion or win an Olympic medal, or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
Beat number one.
Yes.
And I always kind of struggled to understand, well, why do people keep going then once they've got there? Now I get it. It's about process.
Yes.
And it's the little things. You were talking about 1%ers before, right? Because is the objective to try and achieve mastery?
Yes.
Okay. I think I get it now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. That's how it is for me, definitely. I can't speak on everyone else, but for me as a person, that's how I feel. I'm always trying to perfect, and I know that it can be perfected and it can get even better.
What scares you? And I'm not just talking about boxing, but someone like you who trains every day, fit, dangerous, let's be honest.
Yeah.
What scares you?
Time.
What do you mean?
So everyone always says death. Death doesn't fear me. Time. Time is precious. We don't realise how precious time is. Life is very short. It goes like that in a flash. And time, as long as I know I leave this earth, prepared my children and raised them right, that's time. So if I was to go tomorrow, my daughter, my son are ready, prepared. They know who they are, be proud of who they are, and they know what they want.
Isn't your oldest son a champion bowls?
Lawn bowler.
Lawn bowler?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
My aunties. It's in my family. My family are all bowlers.
Really?
But they never took it further
Yeah.
where my son did.
And again, is it about process and you know, again, trying to achieve mastery? Because bowls is hard.
It is hard. I don't know how he does it. I thought I was like, oh, I've got this easy
Yeah.
when I first played him. And I was like, I'm terrible. I couldn't believe it. And I was getting frustrated. I was like, why is it not
I thought you were
going-
going to say something else there, but anyway, you keep
No,
going.
because I couldn't understand why. Like, I'm trying to bowl it, and I was like, "Why isn't it going straight?" And he was like, "Mum, different weight on each side." And I was like, "Ah."
But it's all science and calculus
It
and
is.
you know, all that
and
kind of
knowing
stuff.
the wind and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
breeze, and then the lawn. It's real interesting, and that's where he puts himself in peace. He's calm and relaxed when he's doing that
And in the zone, yeah.
in zone.
Are any of your kids interested in boxing at all?
No, no, none of them are
Siblings?
interested. My sister, she used to be, but she's more Modako.
Modako.
Yeah, she's more Modako, so
That's what you were saying earlier, that
Yeah.
Modako really freaks you out.
that freaks me out. It's like, whoa, that's next level.
Yeah.
I don't know how people do it, but it's amazing too. It's also beautiful to watch too, and just like watching them when they speak their deal, it's like, wow. You know, the history and the story is just, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's why I always say our culture's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It really is.
But I am interested by the fact that other kids are interested in boxing.
Oh yeah, I know.
I was just talking to someone else about apples not falling far from trees. You know, people normally sometimes follow their parents, right?
Yeah.
And what their parents do.
A lot of people say that because they say, oh, why aren't your kids fighting? Like, they could be good at it. And I'm like, I'm glad they don't, to be honest. The reason why is because I don't want my children living under my shadow. I want them to make their own path.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Make their own destiny and their own path and their own journey.
Can I ask you a question about the business of boxing? And
Yes.
I actually didn't want this to be too much about boxing, but it's just because I'm interested.
Yeah.
Because you kind of threw me when you said that there are boxers out there earning $500, and I hope you're earning 100 times that. Okay. So with that in mind, how do you deal with people like Eddie Hearn? He comes across as an arrogant chauvinist
Yeah.
prick.
I know a lot of people say that.
So, you know, there's the boxer, right? But then there's the business of boxing. I mean, how do you deal with that world?
I'm lucky I've got a coach,
Yeah.
my coach Isaac Peach, who deals with that.
Right.
I don't know how he does it because it's just a constant negotiation and then arguments and then fighting for us. Because you got to have a real strong-minded coach who really backs you, not just as a fighter, but life outside of boxing as well. And so my coach, I'm lucky I don't have to deal with Eddie Hearn. My focus is just to fight, and that's what I like doing. But my coach has to deal with him, and it's so hard because the last 2 years
You've been waiting for a fight.
we've been waiting for a fight, and he's constantly delayed us and came up with excuses.
But that's because he's worried because he knows his fight is going to lose, surely.
I actually don't know.
It seems to me that's the obvious thing. Because I was watching the news on this wondering, when is this fight going to happen? I can't remember her name, sorry.
Ali Scotney.
Ellie Scottley. I was going, this fight's got to happen. And then I realised the longer they delay, it's simply because They're either hoping you get old or frustrated or whatever it is because they don't want you to fight her because she's going to lose.
Yeah, I think that's what they think. But for me, I don't look at it like that. I just think like, okay, she's only holding her, like I know they think because I'm old, but there's no limit to me.
No.
Don't you limit me.
Yeah.
That's one thing I know. There's no limit.
Who says you're old, by the way? I mean, you're only 34.
A lot of people say you're too old to be fighting.
But when you think about it, it's only really 4 years, right? When you
Yeah.
think about it.
And I'm still fresh. I'm still young, and age has never held me back because I won't allow it.
Yeah.
Because we put limits to ourselves as soon as we start saying, oh, we're 34, we look for excuses. And that's when we put limits. I don't believe in limits. I refuse to put limits on myself. And it's like even for a job, I'm like, I'll take anything. I'm willing to give it a go because I'm not afraid to fail. Because failing isn't a bad thing. It's actually learning and growth. That's how I look at failing.
What job do you ultimately want to do?
Ooh, my number one goal and what I'm really passionate about is working with our kids, our tamariki.
Hence the I Am Hope work that you're doing.
Yes. Okay. I'm very strong on it. And the reason why I fight is for our kids. Because our kids are suffering. You know, they literally we've got so focused, society's allowed us to just focus on the academic world when really our kids are lacking how to express an emotion. A lot of our kids are killing themselves because they're getting bullied and they don't know how to control their emotions and feelings. And they're afraid to be who they are because they think there's something wrong with them, that they're not okay. And we actually don't listen to them because we look at our own world and we get caught up in our own lives that we neglect that. And so we forget to sit down with our kids and tell them that we struggle too. It's okay not to be okay. I always tell my kids, Mum's feeling down, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to speak. And we as adults need to voice that because our kids look at us. We're the greatest role models for our kids. It's not all these celebrities, it starts with us.
It's interesting you say celebrities. Given you were in a project with celebrities.
Yeah.
Why did you do Celebrity Treasure Island?
Why I did it is because I wanted to raise awareness for my charity, I Am Hope.
But you know you've got to hang out with celebrities.
Yes.
And not all of them are, people that people like.
Yes.
I mean, what was it like doing
I
that?
loved it.
Yeah?
I got along with everyone. You know,
Well, you got along with everyone because they're afraid of you, you know?
see, I didn't see it that way. I didn't see it like that. And now that
They
you
were like
say
going,
it,
we've got to get on with her.
yeah. But my goal was, I love seeing people come out of their comfort zone and embracing their authentic selves and knowing their potential and learning something new about them. That, for me, even though I didn't win it, but I felt like I won because I got to witness them grow as human beings. That's what I got to witness. That was the reward. You know, so many of them thought they couldn't do stuff because they were telling me before the show, like when the cameras stopped filming, they would say, oh, we're not good at that. We're not. And I was like, don't tell yourself that. You can do anything. Don't give up. Fight through it. Push through it. And they did. And they learned something new about them. And that was the greatness for me. And I felt like I won because I got to witness that. It was a beautiful thing to see. I would see people do challenges right in front of me that they thought they could never do. You know, and I learned how to play Sudoku and I had to learn it really quick. And I got it and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, so I was learning about myself as well.
Yeah.
And so I think people get so caught up about actually winning, but they don't look at the actual growth as us. It changes us. We learn something new and it makes us better as people.
I think what people underestimate is the layers to people, right?
Yes.
For example, people will look at you and they'll just see the boxer.
Yes, they do.
They don't see the story behind the boxer. They don't see the thing that kind of really makes you
Who I am.
motivates you.
Yeah.
You know, even when you said you were a cleaner, right? There were people going, "What?" Like,
Yeah, I know.
like all that kind of stuff. There are people have so many layers to them, eh? And once you peel all that back, and once you kind of understand them,
Yeah,
it helps to kind of explain why you do what you do and why you're really good at it.
yeah,
So I guess the only thing I'd say to kind of sum up is I just wish you the best with it.
Oh, thank you.
I think, you know, you will always continue to inspire people, and you're quite very obviously proudly Māori, despite what's happened in your life. Very obviously proudly Māori. So when we see you fighting, we're like, oh, shit, that's us.
Yeah.
That's us.
Well,
you know?
and because I'm tired of the stigma that people's put on us, you know, as Māori. They always say, oh, you're just like every other Māori. You just, you know, you think we're here to steal your land and stuff. No, there's more to us than just land. You get to know us, you know, actually get to know us. Don't base and judge us off one person who was terrible. Base us on as people and how we treat each other. We look after each other and we know our ancestors, we know our identity, and we're proud of where we come from, you know. We're all proud and we stand tall and we stay strong and we refuse to let anyone mock us. And I carry that because one thing I really learnt was the most beautiful thing, our ancestors fought for our language. And if they didn't fight for it, we wouldn't have it growing and blooming now. I went on a train with my daughter and she was in almost tears because they were speaking reo Māori. And that was beautiful because I got to witness that. But it brings me back to our ancestors had it way harder. And they fought and they refused to give up. And that's why we're so strong, because can't help it, our ancestors taught us well and they raised us well. They made sure they instilled us the greatness, and the greatness was standing strong in who we are and staying strong in our language and fighting for it. And that's why it's the most beautiful culture out.
Tēnā koe. Mea tēnā. By the way, where's your name from? How did you get
Maria?
Well, yes.
So I'm named after my auntie, which is my papa's sister.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
Who came up with the Mea name? How did that come about?
So because we have two Marias, so they'd get confused because they'd call us and we didn't know who they were talking. So my cousins just started calling me Mia. And so I kept that as a public name, but my family and everyone that truly know me know my full name.
Ah.
And they say it correctly. And that's how I know it's my whānau. So that's how I can separate it. So it's something that I kind of protect for me, that I have to myself and my kids and my family. So the public knows me as Mia, or the Nightmare, but my whānau know me as Maria. And I know when it's my whānau because they say my name correctly. Because I find it very frustrating when people couldn't say my name. I found like it was mocked. So, you know, I couldn't say my nephew's name, but I practiced it until I knew how to say it correctly. Then I said it to him. And I made sure, but I worked really hard. And it's just making an effort. Some people don't even make an effort, they just, it's actually quite insulting because that's my name. I was given that name. Say my name correctly. Otherwise, just call me by my nickname because my name is precious.
Tēnā koe.
That's how I feel.
Well, okay, so given your te rarawa and I'm Ngāpuhi,
Yeah.
Mea, tēnā koe.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. I wish you all the best, I really do.
I will be
And
doing amazing.
keep doing what you're doing for us.
I will.
Ka nui te mihi kia.
Thank you.